Very much. Right, so now we move back to the glyphosate and the parks and roads budgets, and some suggested change in wording that I think helps us respond to the issue around the certainty for the May 2019 city growth rates. So do you want to give us some feedback on this, or is it like crystal clear?
We went away and reviewed what it would do to our estimate of the city's growth and where it would push the numbers, and we were very uncomfortable with adopting the change as it was originally drafted, because we felt it pushed our estimate of the city's growth beyond where we, in our own mind, believe it is, based on the figures we get from QV.
Right.
And so we talked to Councillor Buck and thought it would be better to look at it with a view to signalling what we want to do, but able to review it again in May when we have a clearer picture of what the size of the city is.
Well, given the smile on Councillor Buck's face, I suspect that we have a way forward. So yes. If you would like to move that, Vicky, and we'll open it up for debate. That's
fine. This mellows it somewhat. So this is a report coming back after they've gotten the certainty around the rates growth, and this will then look at can we do this after we've got the numbers from Diane Carroll.
Okay. Aaron?
I just had a question around glyphosate and its use by the council, and before we made the decision, it would be really good to have a really detailed presentation to the councillors on what we're currently using, how much we're using, why we wouldn't use the glyphosate. I realise there's the Monsanto case, which is a benchmark case, but that's in California where you have to write on a coffee cup that coffee causes cancer. So, and it hasn't been outlawed by the EPA. And so there's a number of things around a presentation that I think we need to get, and then to know the costs of moving away. Because I don't use spray myself, I'm an urban hippie, but that's not to say that that's how we can manage our gardens. So I would like to see and have that information. And because the other one is where the weeds grow on the edge of asphalt. Will our costs include asphalt and road damage, and what that's likely to look like over years if we don't use a product like that at all? Because I would love to see a spray-free city, but we need to know the costs and outcomes of that.
So because we're,
absent past that.
Standing orders, yeah, we've already resolved that. So we resolved that back in 2016, and the resolution back in 2016 was not as it wasn't as it didn't require us to ban the use of glyphosate. It required us to minimise its use and to remove it from that contact with the public. So that's what was the resolution. And what we have discovered through the Finance and Performance Committee meeting is that there is we put insufficient money on budget to pay for that. But I think as part of the reporting back, I think it would be worthwhile having the background information that supports it. And I'm perfectly happy that councillors get a further briefing on it so that everyone's up to speed.
Yeah, because one is, yes, you could word it that we didn't put, well, the council didn't put sufficient money on to support it, but it also could be that information might come back that it costs a lot more than we thought.
But it did.
So
that's the answer.
Because, well, no, now that you have the outcomes.
Did it?
Yeah, we didn't put that much on.
Okay.
Right.
So,
okay.
But we'll get that information and make sure that it's, and I agree with you that having a presentation would be helpful to support that decision making.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Sarah, David?
Just quickly note that I'm pretty sure that council has a service where you can ring up and get your house taken off the spraying list for streets. I've seen people talking about it, and if we could check and make sure that that's a service that people can do, so you can register your house and then they don't come and spray the weeds outside your place. So.
David?
Yeah, look, I'm a little more amenable to it. Now that we've softened the wording, we're looking at sort of reviewing things for further consideration. I think from memory I was probably the only one that opposed it in the first place. And so, you know, we've gone from 450k per year to 2.1 million in current costs. Our contractors are struggling. We need 650k just to maintain the current levels of service, which quite frankly are woefully inadequate. So our CSRs are skyrocketing, and a report from Jason Rivet said that the people out there doing it would actually like some softening of the council position on when, where and in what circumstances glyphosate could be used, which would be beneficial and lead to increased service delivery and outcome. And in fact, at the moment, you know, we're just because we are not using the likes of Roundup, we are decreasing our amenity mowing and gardening, and they're having to take a lot of shortcuts to meet the council's position on this, and I think it's woefully inadequate, and I look forward to later in the year to be able to look at this subject with some rationale that would support obviously the staff position or the contractor's position of some softening of this, because it's absolutely ludicrous. Our city is going backwards in its garden city image as a consequence.
Okay, I'll put the resolution. Oh, Yanni?
I just wanted to respond actually, because you know, I think it's really important to separate out these two issues. The use of glyphosate, I don't think it's acceptable in this day and age with what we know about it. So I welcome this resolution. The maintenance, I think, and the garden city image is something that this council has identified previously. We've got work underway to improve in that regard, and I welcome that as well. But I don't think we should simply blame the lack of financial money towards not using glyphosate as the reason why our garden city image has gone down. I think it's a huge range of different things that we can do to improve maintenance, including community being involved. You know, just simple things like people that have requested a bigger green bin so that when they mow their neighbouring berm that's not being maintained, that we actually support it. There's a whole bunch of stuff we could do to do that. So yeah, I don't think we should blame the lack of using glyphosate as the reason why maintenance has gone down in the city. I think we should actually look at how we're doing things, and I welcome that. We're going to do that.
Very good. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. It's carried. David East. Thank you. So I think that's all of the amendments. Looking around the table. Very good. So we'll now move to debate the resolution to approve and adopt the draft plan to go out for consultation. And I'll kick off the debate. This is very much the second year of a 3-year operational part of the long-term plan. So every 3 years we put together a 10-year long-term plan, and that includes a 30-year infrastructure strategy. So it does have an outlook. And in between years we produce this annual plan, and this year there haven't been a significant number of or a high level of changes that have required us to go out to a special consultative procedure. So we are issuing a consultation document, and it does have all of the detail in it. The main changes are highlighted so people can see what it is that we're proposing to do that is different from year 2 of the 2018-2028 LTP, and this will amend that, but as I say, not in a highly significant way. I guess the headline is the focus that has been on getting that level of rates increase down, and there has been a real effort gone into making sure that we've been able to achieve that. So I think I wrote down 4.92, so I think the CD will have to be changed to reflect that. I had 4.98 in there as part of my introduction to it. But what I do want to focus on is just the amount of work that still needs to be done in terms of securing our drinking water status so that we can get rid of the chlorine. And that has been, I mean, every year, pretty much when we've had an annual plan, we've had one of those events occur that has made a significant impact on our ability to move forward. And the flooding was obviously the initial one that happened in 2014, and then of course in 2016 we had the fires, and then we had the loss of our secure drinking water status. And you know, for me that was always, it was always like you know, losing accreditation. I remember when I arrived here as the mayor in 2013, we had lost the accreditation to issue building consents as a building consent authority in the biggest rebuild that the country's ever seen. And you know, for us, our water is who we are. You know, the pristine nature of the drinking water that we have beneath us is it is precious, and I believe that we have an absolute obligation on behalf of the residents of Christchurch to get to the position where we can continue to distribute that through a good infrastructure that we do have in order to ensure that people can take that water directly from its source and enjoy it as it comes out of the tap. So our focus now is on not only safe drinking water, but safe drinking water that's good to drink, and the good to drink means that it doesn't taste like chlorine. So that has been a huge impact on our financial position, because we've had to bring a significant amount of funding forward. So the funding was always there on the budget, but it had to be brought forward in order to meet what is an incredible timetable. I'm really, really proud of what the team have been able to deliver, and they continue to focus on that end target. So that was the one thing that I particularly wanted to call out. I will mention the waste minimisation targeted rate. We are in a global environment. We have the right focus, which is waste minimisation. EcoCentral's been caught on the sort of increased costs of sending product overseas, and it means that there is a cost to us. But it does mean that for quite a long time, as ratepayers, we've had a considerable saving while we're contributing to waste minimisation. So we haven't had to carry the full cost that would have been applied otherwise. So we've got to work hard, and I think we have to work really hard with other centres to make sure that we get what is a New Zealand-wide problem in the context of what is a global problem right. So there's quite a lot of work to be done there. But you know, I'd like to thank everyone who's put a lot of effort into this. It's been an enormous task, and you know, if Carol and Di can carry our thanks back to the team, it would be very much appreciated. So I'll open it up for debate. Sarah?
Thank you. Firstly, I'm really happy to see the increased fees for community hall hire go, but disappointed that such large increases sort of made it through into the draft annual plan to start with. And I have a feeling that I might have seen those same figures actually on another page in the detailed list, so we might have to, I don't know, Mary, whether we need to look at that. But I'm also really pleased, it hasn't been mentioned yet really, that we've been able to bring a lot of the cycleways program back on track without having a rates impact. So we've been able to reflect now the increased subsidy, or the actual subsidy that the government are going to be putting in with the targeted enhanced funding assistance rates. And that means that for our ratepayers funding that we already had set aside, we're able to nearly quadruple the amount of work on our cycleways that we can do in this year and in the next 2 years, and we've got those budgeted. One of those we heard from a lot of residents who had real difficulties biking down Port Hills Road, especially with the new increased truck speeds along next to the inland port there, the trucks coming through there in the long-term plan. People remember those submissions. The original time frame for that cycleway, the Heathcote Express, was to start at the end of this year, and now that's back on track, and residents will be able to do that safely really soon, which is really good. But as well as getting our cycleways back on track and the emissions down, water's the other key thing, and I'm really looking forward to getting the report that looks at our reticulation system. So not only removal of the chlorine, but making sure that our whole system and the program of work to do that is on track for the future supply of our city is really important.
Phil?
Thank you, and I certainly agree with Councillor Templeton's sentiments around cycleways, for example. I think that I'm very glad to see the savings that we now have in this budget for, you know, there's $20 million additional there from the NZTA subsidies. I think it's a real tribute to the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee that, in fact, you know, we have done really good work to date and will do more. I'm really impressed at how balanced our budget is. I think there's so many good things in it. I think the amendments today add to that. I think it was essential that, for example, we looked at what could happen at O'Kane's Bay, and we're making sure that O'Kane's Bay, for example, also has safe drinking water. I think it's also great that, in fact, as a council, we're able to achieve so much as we have, given what we've been up against in terms of the number of, you know, major assets which we have had to rebuild. And I think, you know, there's no question that the dividends we've received from the Christchurch City Holdings assets, there's been an increase on what we expected by $87 million. And I just think some really good things are happening, and that means that we'll be starting to develop, for example, our Performing Arts Centre. And, you know, just the size of the capital program alone is, you know, over nearly $540 million that we'll be spending. I do want to make some comments around the uniform annual general charge and how that fits with some of our fixed charges. I certainly understand that we have to increase the charges for waste minimisation. I just think it's unfortunate that it's clear from the tables in the reports that while the increase for the uniform annual general charge is small, and in fact there's a principle involved here, because this is a set charge, so it won't be part of our progressive rating system. And what it will impact on is that there will be an increase for some low households who have low socioeconomic incomes. And I think that's really unfortunate, because I know that will impact on some of the people in my ward, in Spraydon. I think as a council, I am disappointed really to see that as a principle. We know that we live in a city and a country where, in fact, rich people are getting richer and poor are getting poorer. And the last report was the richest people in our country as a group have more wealth than the other 90%. And I just think as a council, we need to really consider just what we're doing to actually heal that divide. How can we actually reduce that? And so I cannot agree with the principle that we're doing this simply because we have not previously raised that uniform annual general charge for a long time. We shouldn't be putting up any rate where it isn't necessary. However, overall, as I say, I think we've made some really great progress with our budget, and I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you. Pauline.
Well, yeah, thank you. Look, I'd like to just add to the transport projects as well that we've been able to bring forward, particularly in the cycleways, and I commend the staff for being ready to hit the ground running there with additional subsidies of 75% now. that's fantastic. But I would like to see that spelt out in the consultation document a bit more clearly, because we do tend to put our gross figure in, and then we take the subsidy in the income stream, whereas if we could put some sort of a net figure in there so people can see actually what we are getting such value for money. Because the cycleway project, as you take those 13 MCRs, are over halfway. We've got the planning and the route selection for so many more now, and the delivery is the third phase, if you like, so we're really getting there. And also we talked about the fees and charges and the increases there, because we haven't increased for so long, and I'm thinking, could we possibly put an annual inflationary increase in there to avoid that? I'm really pleased with the new level of rates at 4.96, seems to be changing all the time and actually reducing all the time. That's really, really pleasing to see that, and I think people will appreciate the work we've done there to get to that. Yeah, we've got to balance the figures, balance the budget, but we've also got to balance the value for money that we deliver on that, and that's really challenging in our environment. We need to work as a city, I think, on reducing our waste, so we reduce our costing for that. We need to reduce our water consumption, and you know, we need to reduce our emissions. Basically, we need to reduce our environmental impact, and I think we could actually work harder at that as a council and getting that message out there somehow. The maintenance of our footpaths and parks and reserves is a concern. This sits across committees and across budget lines, and we know that it's a source of customer satisfaction, low customer satisfaction, and that's evidenced by the number of complaints. I mean, even the work we've done in the Dudley with the land drainage recovery program there, beautiful work there. It's just absolutely brilliant. If anyone hasn't been along there, I really ask you to get down and have a look. But that's now lacking in maintenance, because I think it's, I suspect, it's a funding issue, and I think that goes across the board. But I think today we've actually agreed that we will be working with staff for better understanding of what's being done to address these issues between now and June, and hopefully we will have a way forward there. In the Mayor's intro on page 173, we read the focus on our parks, roads and footpaths is a real priority, and I think we all agree with that, and I think the people of Christchurch agree with that. So I really welcome the attention that we'll be giving and promising to give to our city's image. I also agree with Leanne about the, the water supply improvement program is a credit to the staff. The work we've done on that, we've stepped up very quickly, and we'll keep the foot on the pedal for that. So overall, thank the staff for all the work on this, and support it.
Thank you. Glenn.
Thank you. I think every council has debates over rates in any given year, disaster or no disaster. So it comes as no surprise to us, we will always have a robust exchange with our community over the rates, because that is their kind of primary interaction with the local council. But obviously we need income. Our community is reasonably okay with rates as long as they feel that they're being spent responsibly, and that's our task, to represent them, their views, and to ask those questions. I share some of the concerns that Phil has raised over the UAG component of the rates, because when you look at on the face of it, it looks out of proportion and inequitable to the lower valued households, and many of us have a social constituency there. Have a concern also over the traffic management plan extra costs, pages 162 to 163. We already have Christchurch NZ, which is entrusted with the major events, our own council with the minor. I'm really concerned over the impact. We need more detail, and Tim and I have had a chat over these on the viability potentially of some events in the city, which we need as part of the city's recovery, in my view. On that note, pleasing to see the ongoing budget for planning for the Avon or Takaro cycleway. I think that could be, and the associated land drainage stop banks, that could be a really good first up win. Just looking at the capital endowment funding, it's a non-rates impact. You can see some of the priorities coming through in the decisions we've made. So, you know, some big dollops in there for agencies like Christchurch NZ, Build Back Smarter, Now Healthier Homes. You can measure in a home the actual impact of good insulation for that household. You can track along that figure in terms of measurable health. So I want that applied to, when it comes to signing off at the end of June, I'd really like us to take a hard look at those operational costs over those agencies. But this is our draft. It's now out for the community to have their thoughts. They will most definitely give us those thoughts. We could have another slice of 17 elected members here. They would still have been faced with difficult decisions over town hall, chlorine, stadium, cycleways, everything. The thing is, we've been able to make decisions, and I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you. Jimmy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah. If we review the figure based on the staff present to us earlier, so this annual plan, the average rates increased 4.92% compared to the long-term plan, the second year of the 2018 to 28. I mean the 5.5. So my view will be welcome by all of the ratepayers, no matter they are rich or they are poor. Because why? It means one aspect, our city's aging population, even some people, they have a luxury house, but the income is very insufficient. So council take the prudent way, try to reduce those rates increase. I think that's very good. So that's very good the figure, very good the situation. Second one, if we review those figure this year, the capital program expenditure, $538.1 million, and also operating expenditure, $598.9 million. So these figures represent, from now on, there's a trend and a tendency that quite a few of council's capital program or project have been done, and opened. So from now on, probably our workload will be rely on, focus on the regular maintenance as well as running out the services with more effectively and efficiently. So this gives us the signal. We need to more kind of focus on those tasks, particular of my fellow council mentioned earlier, like a footpath, the gutter caused the flood, or pothole, or routing the quake. It is kind of, or maybe our park, our reserve, our public verge. Need to more focus on the area, give the ratepayer, give the residents, they have a sense, council do something, and also we take a quick response to meet their needs. But this is the draft annual plan only. We are all aware, we are seeking the ratepayer and residents through the consultation. So once they're coming back, give us more kind of clear picture, whether in which area. Now we need to have review and have a minor amendment. So I'm quite happy to approve and adopt this draft annual plan for consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim.
No one wants to hear me? Oh, there we go. Thank you. Look, thank you to the staff for the work they've done on this draft annual plan. It's a huge amount of work and I really do appreciate it. So thank you very much for that. I do have a note of caution though. In the last less than 6 years, the last 2 terms, we've lost our building consent accreditation, which was a cornerstone of a local body. So we've had to absorb the cost of that. But yes, we do have, I think, a better process. But we've had to go through that, endure that. We've endured major floods. And you could say that the work that we have undertaken to reduce the risk to our ratepayers should have been done 30 years ago. But the work that's being done, when you look at the retention basins, not only are they reducing the risk of flood, but they're also... What?
It was very good condition 30 years ago.
Well, look, yeah, well, we've still got what we got. But if we look at those retention basins, they're also reducing contamination, or designed to reduce contamination to our rivers. So again, we've absorbed a huge cost, but it is to a good end. We've then had major fires. We've then had the changes to our requirements to our pump stations, and adding chlorination to our water. These 4 things we have absorbed as a council in less than 6 years. So I think we do have to look at, when we have and talk about our rates base increasing, etc., I think we do have to look as a council at having some ability to absorb these costs, or what is around the corner. So I just really want to put that out there, so we're aware that we don't have suddenly pools of money to spend. We just have to be cautious on the way we go forward, and when we do make these improvements, our staff are really onto it, because they are doing great work on all those areas. The one thing I am disappointed about is the O'Kane's Bay even making it to the debate of the annual plan. Here we are as a city talking about chlorination and complaining about it, but here is a community that is concerned about clean and safe drinking water. We agreed to do and undertake the work for that community, irrelevant of whether it's O'Kane's Bay or Cashmere or Fendleton, whoever it could be. That is the underlying thing as a city. We should be supplying safe drinking water and clean drinking water. And I really found it surprising that we could not make an adjustment after being given incorrect information to our capital works program of $2.7 million for this community. This work should be undertaken now. It should have been underway. So I'm really disappointed in that. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I think as a council we should look at that and examine it and ensure it doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne?
I'd like to also congratulate and thank the staff and my fellow councillors for the huge amount of work, hard work done to keep our rates as low as possible. I believe that this has been achieved through a united vision to achieve the very best outcome for our residents and the city. Pauline's already referred to the Mayor's introduction to this draft annual plan and to her assertion that maintenance is absolutely critical to our residents' experience of living here, and that the look and feel of the city matters to residents and visitors alike. The focus on our parks, roads and footpaths remains a real priority. How the city looks and feels is the measure that many residents use to evaluate how well their rates are spent. We're all aware that staff are doing their best with limited resources. However, we are also hearing from our residents that they are unhappy with the levels of maintenance. Green spaces are untidy, roads and footpaths are sometimes difficult to negotiate. And I expect that this message will be reinforced through the submissions process. So we must respond to this. I'm hoping we can implement regular updates from staff to inform us on what we are doing to manage this challenge, to identify ways to nimbly respond to complaints and explore ways to use the resources we already have in a more effective manner. And most importantly, do we need more financial resource to achieve the results our residents hope for? Are we simply not giving staff enough money to achieve the look and feel for the city we all want? I anticipate more discussion on this matter once we receive feedback from our residents. Solutions need to be found and implemented, and priorities reassessed. We all love this city and we want it to look its best and to feel a sense of pride in our place. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicky?
So the figure that we have at the moment for the rates is 4.92. I'm hoping with the resolutions that we passed today, with the reduction in the contribution to regenerate, that we're working towards, that figure will end up at 4.27. So that's the figure I'm hopeful that we will get to. And that would be a reduction of 3.1, Di, because I can see you frowning.
No, you can't.
It wasn't a question.
I mean, it's a debatable.
It's an error that I felt I needed to correct.
It's not. Oh well, we're without.
I'm happy.
We're out of. Are you happy for
Go for it. Yep.
It's just you refer to 4.92, but that's for your
average residential property. Yes,
right.
Yes, I understand that.
4.96.
Yes, I understand that. I'm working on the average residential property figure that you gave us for a dwelling of just over 500,000, 503,000. Right. Right. So in terms of where we've come to in the last 5 years, I think it sort of feels like we can finally breathe a wee bit. We've taken $550 million by way of bonds from our companies in terms of CCHL helping the city through this. That's been quite a major exercise, a huge exercise. It's over 3 years. It does mean, and I think people need to understand this, that selling a company would not necessarily result in any more income to the council. Just perchance that was going to be an issue that got raised this year. I think it's good that we've actually dealt with the major issues now, such as the multi-use arena, so it's not sitting there facing us as a unbudgeted item, and particularly with the issue of chlorine and the wellheads, where a lot of capital has been brought forward. It does mean that when the government wants to review the whole concept of what's happening around the three waters, that we really do not now want to be paying for the rest of the South Island's water and wastewater. But as I see it, there's no really nasty things still lurking, and I think there are some really important things that we haven't emphasised enough, and that is the basic road maintenance, the footpath work, public transport, repair work that's allowed for within the Capital Acceleration Fund, which was, I think, around 40 million, and about 40 million for the red zone work as well. Sometime during this coming year, we will see the global settlement work completed, which I think will also have a positive impact for the city. And I think in relation to the Uniform Annual General Charge, if you look at where it's gone over the last 15 years, it has fallen dramatically. So this increases it marginally. I think we need to sort out where it should be and look at the big picture on that. But I think the point that Jimmy made of people who have large houses or large value houses, high value houses, but not a lot of cash is important, and that we actually need to publicise somewhat more the rates rebates which are available to people. I don't think we tell people enough about the fact that they can get that. So I'm optimistic of looking forward to a rates increase of 4.27 for the average value dwelling of just over 500,000.
Thank you. Aaron.
Yeah, I'll obviously vote for this today because this is just a consultation document. It's not necessarily where we'll land in June. I don't like our current position on rates. They are double and triple the rate of inflation year upon year upon year, compounding, and that's unaffordable, unsustainable. I realise we've been through some natural disasters. And quite a collection too. Like if you were to put them on a t-shirt, you'd probably need a size XL to fit them all on. But that's the world we live in, and the world will keep changing, and the city will face problems again in the future. We'll get another surprise in the next year where we'll go, we didn't see that coming, because that's what happens about every year or 18 months in Christchurch. So my words of warning around this is those increases, and it's, will we hear from the public that complain all year but don't come into the annual plan and the long-term plan? We seem to hear from everyone who wants something, but we don't hear from the thousands of people that don't want anything and don't want the council to keep spending and don't want lots of libraries and don't want lots of swimming pools and all of those. We need to hear more from those people, because I don't think their story's told enough, and people feel that they always have to come and see us when they want something, not the other way around. And we often give in and we increase budgets, we bring things forward. We're living in a very luxurious city. Some parts of it are incredibly amazing. We put in the Ferrari version when the Toyota would have been perfectly fine across lots of stuff we build, and I just find it not affordable, not sustainable. So it'll be good to hear from people that feel the same way, rather than just seeing all their comments on stuff. Unless it's one person that can type fast and does lots with like 600 different accounts, but I'm assuming it's not. Because you run into the odd one at the supermarket who ambushes you and gets angry at the council for 2 seconds and then walks away. So let's hear from those people this year, and let's listen to what they have to say, and hopefully we can not keep increasing year upon year well beyond the rate of inflation, because all the bottom end incomes tend to only go up around the rate of inflation if you're lucky. And we've got a massive population of retired people coming, and most of them aren't going to retire that rich. So my intention is to work till the day I die, or I may finish the day before, and another number of other people have to do the same. I enjoy work, so it's not a problem for me, but some people look forward to that golden age of 65, and it won't be that golden, it'll probably be more like lead.
Jamie?
Look, wholesale change isn't set in an annual plan, it's the tweaking of a budget exercise. The next annual plan, the next long-term plan process will be 2020. And I think from my perspective, going back to the annual plan, the two top goals for this piece of work is the trimming of the projected rates rises from what the LTP has projected, and doing all we can possibly do to get the chlorine out of our water supply as fast as humanly possible. But I wouldn't kid ourselves that that the rate rises or where they're at are a good thing. 4.92 isn't good, 4.5 isn't good, 4 isn't good. Remember, these are average rises as well, so that percentage is higher if your house is worth more than $500,000.
No, it's the other way round. Oh, sorry.
The annual general charge. Yes, but as far as the average rates rise percentage from dollar-wise,
yes, dollar-wise, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily, because just
Sorry,
a lot of
we're
people on the lower
intervening
incomes.
We don't mean to.
A lot of people on the lower incomes aren't necessarily homeowners themselves. So the ones that it does tend to hit the hardest are those on the fixed incomes. So I think it's also completely unfair to anyone in the city whose wages are not rising higher than the rates rises. So it's a gradual creep, and this is something that we all contend with, that you hear the grumbles, but I think deep down people don't truly understand how unsustainable this way of charging is. And as long as those rises are higher than inflation, it is ultimately unsustainable. And it's just a matter of time of when that implosion will happen. So this isn't by any means isolated to Christchurch, but I don't think that there's any reason that we shouldn't lead the charge on that. So I'd love to see that as the challenge for the next long-term plan. I think we need to radically review how those rates are charged and how income is generated and how the city spends ratepayer money. There was talk of the asset sales and everything like that. That's probably not going to be an appropriate place in the annual plan. And I think what would also be more inappropriate would be for any funds realised from that to go into pet projects. I don't think that would be the intention of it. I think you'd be essentially reducing debt, which isn't as exciting, but it's not going to capital expenditure, because capital expenditure simply leads to operational expenditure. But again, today isn't the day for that. I think we've had still a lot of challenges in front of us, even with this tweaking, and by and large I think that we're in a good space with that. This is a discussion document, so we're going to welcome input from the community, and before I sign off with that, I'd just like to thank colleagues for all your work around this. It still is a long process, and most importantly staff as well, who put in a tremendous amount of time, and we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Perfect timing. David.
Thanks. Look, I'm really pleased to see that we've had a proposed rates increase less than 5% and currently sitting at 4.92. And I generally support the thrust of the annual plan. For me, chlorine removal and the security of our wellheads remains a high priority, as does the completion of the major projects, the Convention Centre, Metro Sports and the multi-use arena. I also think that actual prioritisation of roading renewals and repairs is a significant project that needs elected member oversight. Equity across the city in responding to repairs and maintenance and needs is also an issue that I think needs some oversight from elected members. A large proportion of the decrease in our rates this time round is due to underestimation of growth, and that's something that we can't rely on going forward. So we're proposing a 4.92% at this stage as our rates increase for this annual plan, and I trust that following consultation this figure stays or reduces further. Because we've found savings doesn't mean to say we need to spend it. And I do support the comments that both Aaron and Jamie have made just a few moments ago about looking at where we're going, compounding rates rises over the years, and looking at further savings and further methods of financing council operations is something that really needs to be given a high priority. I also think, other councillors made the point about consultation and some of our communities perhaps not bothering or don't sort of feel comfortable coming to the consultation sessions that we have. And I've long held a view that our method of consultation and hearings is outdated, doesn't sort of sit comfortably in the modern world, and we need to find better ways of engaging with our community and actually getting a feeling for where things sit. So I think it's a well-balanced annual plan, and let's keep it that way.
Thank you. Andrew?
Thank you. Like others, I'm pleased to see the rates increase at a lower level than was projected for this financial year in the LTP last year. But I'd also hope that we can find ways of further reducing this increase between now and June when we make our final decisions. We heard from the community through the LTP conversations last year about the effects of these rates increases, and it's good to be able to reflect back on those messages with a lower than projected rates increase in front of us now. We also need to consider how that rate increase is shared across the community, how the way that we charge rates achieves the best social outcomes for the city, what affordability across different communities really looks like, how this supports the kind of city that we want to live in. And I'd be very wary of proposals that turn this whole thing on its head and that quite possibly see those that are least able to afford a higher burden of rates with that placed at their feet in a future long-term plan. We also need to look at ways that we can better achieve value for money, how we spend as well as what we spend, how we do maintenance, the future role of Regenerate Christchurch and what its funding level might need to be would both be really good examples of this. But the other thing that this plan does is reflect on the work that we've done over successive years as a council to create and stick to a coherent and sensible financial strategy which has seen us contain rates increases to a lot less than they could have been, and to continue to plan to reduce these rates increases in future at the same time as delivering business as usual services and a huge capital programme including some major earthquake recovery and regeneration and reinstatement projects. The role that our significant asset base has played and our resulting ability to be able to release significant amounts of capital through CCHL has been a real cornerstone of that financial strategy. And I'd hate to see that unravel or overturned by a future council. For the length of time I've been sitting at this table, we've been good custodians of our finances and our assets in very challenging circumstances, and that I think will be one of the things that will be seen as a legacy of this council and the last. And I believe that it's incumbent on a future council not to U-turn, but to continue to do the same. And it worries me today to hear talk of what a future council might do with funds realised from asset sales, as that would actually represent an unravelling of the successful financial strategy that we've seen. I take the opportunity to thank staff for their work in preparing this draft, but also for the work done in the past few years to allow us to achieve what we have achieved. And I'd also take the opportunity to acknowledge the collaborative approach of colleagues working together to achieve this, both in the past and even in the way that we've dealt with the amendments around this table today. So as I always say at draft annual plan time, I absolutely look forward to hearing from our community about whether we've got the priorities right, and I hope that we get some quality submissions to the annual plan that give us something to work with, that do see us making some changes to this so that we're really achieving what the community wants with the annual plan when we come to make final decisions in June of this year.
Thank you. Yanni.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to raise several points in regards to this document. This is going up for consultation, but I would like you to put B separate, which is the one which increases the uniform annual general charge. And just specifically responding to that, actually what is not clear from this document is that the flat fee for waste is going up considerably, which on top of the UAG charge has a higher disproportionately percentage to those on the lower property values, and I think that's not the right way to go, so I am opposed to that. But I just want to talk about several points in terms of this draft plan. One, totally endorse the need to look at the cost of doing things. As we go through the submission process, we need to start thinking about why things cost so much and how we can do them in a more affordable way. Construction costs, agency costs, consultancy costs just all seem to be adding up to this huge financial challenge that we face. We need to get on top of it, and there's some mechanisms in here that are starting to look at that. We also need to start getting regional funding mechanisms in place with our neighbouring territorial authorities and with ECAN over things like the Metro's multi-use arena. This is going to be a regional asset, and yet we have been left picking up the full cost of it with central government. Second, we need to start cleaning up our city. We need to clean up our parks, our roads and our waterways, and we also need to keep fixing our own damaged buildings and our own broken social housing. I still think we've got a long way to go to get back to a state that we were before the earthquake hit. No one should underestimate that challenge ahead. The third point I want to raise is the balance between the central city and the suburbs. Again, in this budget, there's still a huge preference for funding of things in the central city at a time when our suburbs are crying out for things to be fixed, especially the broken infrastructure such as the roads, the footpaths and the water supply network. I totally endorse the idea of getting chlorine out of our water as soon as possible and upgrading our pump stations, but the bigger risk is our reticulated network, which isn't getting I think the right funding, and we are seeing post-skirt the continued breakdown of those water mains. 5, it's really important that, 4, we need to get on and look at the PT infrastructure, and we need a coordinated approach so that the people in Linwood, for example, get a decent public transport interchange, not just an intersection safety improvement that's reallocated. And final point I wanted to make is that we really need meaningful consultation, engagement and planning. We need information that is clearly able to be understood, that clearly show what changes are proposed and why, and that put community at the heart of our planning. And I think as this document is agreed today, let's look at the tools and all the abilities that we have to ensure that people can participate in this process. I think that's really important based on what our resident surveys are telling us. So I welcome that opportunity.
Thank you. Dion.
So it feels like the council seems to be getting on top of the capital work program, which is really good. So I just wanted to say thank you to, to all the work that everybody has actually been putting into getting on top of that, because it's really good to now see in the annual plan and all that sort of stuff, the detailed approach to what the capital works are, what's going to be spent where. There's $538 million set aside for that, over 900 plus projects over the next financial year. So, it's a lot of work, and there's good data on that. It's a shame that we still can't get a plan nailed for how we're going to fix all those grade 5 roads. It seems like Treasury are holding us up a little bit in that respect, which is a shame, and I'd like to see that sort of come back to us as soon as possible before hopefully we can sign off on this annual plan, so we can actually get a plan out to the public about how we're going to get some of those grade 5 roads that we promised to get fixed through that CRAF project. But one of the things that I still am disappointed in the plans is the lack of oversight that we get and that the public will get around the council operating costs. So OPEX in the city is quite expensive, and I've just been doing some sort of research over other cities in the country, and we're probably the second most expensive city to run in New Zealand, from what I can gather from the OPEX costs from the annual reports that have been going through. So what I'd like to do, or what I'd like to see us to drill down a little bit more in that area to make a real impact on getting rates down, because 5% has been said before is not sustainable. It's not going to be sustainable, and the only real way we're going to make changes in that is to look at how the operational costs of the council are going to move forward. So budget's broken down and all that kind of stuff, so actually people can see those when we're looking at our annual plans and long-term plans. The next time to look at that will be the long-term plan, so I'd look forward to seeing us work towards that as well. Couple of points that were noted. Asset sales, probably not a good way to sort of raise money and reduce costs. We've already, worked to release a lot of capital from those programs, but we need to be working on ways that we can actually start getting more money out of our assets that we have, because as we can see, we're sort of topping up some of our non-performing companies. We've got some more money coming into VBase, and we can't continue to do that. We need to look at our companies and actually understand, are they giving us value for money? If they're not, then what do we do with them to move, so we actually aren't spending more money, ratepayers' money, on topping those up. The other last point that I want to make is that we do, as councils and across the country, need to work on how we fund the council and the city operation. I don't think rates is going to work indefinitely ever. We need to think about, as a nation, how we actually fund councils and actually spend or actually operate cities. So I just wanted to leave it on that point, because it's a very big point that we need to start thinking about seriously.
Thank you. Right, any further contributions? I'll put the motion. We'll want a separate one. Which one do you want held separate? That B. So everything apart from B, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. I'll put 1B. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's Yanni, Glenn and Phil. Thank you. So now we move on to that's carried, and I'll move on to the next resolution, which is that council approves and adopts for consultation the consultation document, and do I have a seconder for that? And the consultation method, Andrew. So I'll just comment briefly. I mean, obviously the consultation document starts with an introduction from me, and it has highlighted some of the things that have been discussed in the debate that we've just had. In terms of the consultation, I'm really picking up on what people have said about the consultation, and I think, I really do want to encourage local communities to think about coming together to put together submissions, so that they're not so much individual, but they're actually thinking about their local communities. We're going to refer, as I said earlier on in the piece, or I may not have said it out loud, but we're going to refer the submissions that come in around community projects through to the community boards, so that the community boards can actually assess them and give them some weighting. And when they come and make their submissions right at the beginning of the hearings process, then that will enable us to get a real sense of what the community's saying, and they will understand what their local communities are saying as well. It's a bit of an experiment to trial a new way of doing that, but actually really picking up on what David said before is actually focusing on the broader community issues and the priorities being set by the local communities. So I do encourage people to provide submissions. I can reassure people that we do read the submissions, and we will allow for hearing times for those that want to present oral submissions. I know that some community boards, they go out into their local malls and shopping centres and you know, help encourage and stimulate conversations about it. So, you know, there is no wrong door in terms of, you know, sending in your views. And the period for submissions will run from the 1st of March to the 1st of April. I'm writing a little article at the moment, but I'm suggesting that people, if they want to get a head start on that process, then today's agenda does provide them with all of the information that they'll need to make their submission. So does anyone else want to comment on it? Otherwise, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And I'll move that standing orders X, Y and Z now apply. And Phil will second that motion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much. Great. Cool. Yeah.